Welcome to the Yamaha QL Digital Console series of tutorials. My name is Jay and I'll be your instructor. In this episode, we're going to be going over the physical overview of the console as well as the menu layout. Please remember to like and subscribe as it greatly helps us continue to make these videos. If you haven't yet initialized your console, please click the link above to see the next video. At first glance, you can see 34 faders. By default, the first 32 are inputs, followed by a stereo bus and mono bus. Looking at the front and starting on the left, we could see 16 hotkeys to access our mixes or matrices. By simply tapping the hotkey, we can affect what goes into each of the associated mixes as an input. If I tap the Mix Matrix button, the hotkeys now change to a matrix and I can either send inputs into them or the desired mix. I will be taking you through a more detailed and in-depth look at routing in a future video. Please click the link above. Now looking at the right of the console, we see our gain knob. This is the white knob. By default, this affects the analog gain associated with the preamp of that channel. I could show you in a future tutorial how to affect digital gain. Please click the link above. To the right of the gain knob is our Dynamics 1 threshold control. Below that is Dynamics 2 threshold control. To the left of that is the pan for the channel selected. Below that is a knob associated with the high pass filter of that channel. Below that is our quick EQ access knobs. From left to right, Q, frequency, and gain. Next are the buttons associated with frequency bands that our quick access knobs control. From left to right, low, low mid, and high. Below this is our touch and turn knob. This essentially gives us fine control over selected parameters on the screen. It also changes color based on what is selected. It should be noted that this knob can also press in for fine control over certain parameters. To the right is our fader bank selection keys. By default, key 1 is inputs 1 through 32, key 2 is inputs 33 through 64, key 3 is our DCA groups, key 4 is all 16 of our mixes, all 8 of our matrices, our stereo bus, and additional buses such as Q and monitor. Looking at the back of the console from left to right, we see 16 Omni outputs. To the center and to the right, we have 32 inputs. If you look at input 15, you could see where someone was trying to be nice setting up my console and dropped it and broke an XLR cable off into it. That's really nice of him. Below our Omni outputs, from left to right, we have our MIDI output and input. We have our BNC 75 ohm word clock in and out, our general purpose input, and our digital AES output. If you look at the bottom of the console, you'll see that there are 2 card slots available. I have 2 installed in this console. The one on the left is a D-Bus analog input card. The one to the right is a Waves card. That way I can have all my Waves plug in as inserts on this console, which I'll go into on a further video. Please click the link above. Above our card slots, we see our Dante Network section. I keep mine labeled green and blue just because all my cabling and Dante equipment are also labeled green and blue based on the primary and secondary networks. I will go over Dante devices in a future tutorial. Please click the link above. To the right of that is our LAN port. This is used for various reasons, including accessing the app. Please click the link above to see that. Lastly, at the top is 2 ports to connect a lamp. Now, looking inside the selected channel menu and using the soft keys, from left to right, we have our mixes. By default, they're pre-fader. I could teach you how to change these to post in a future tutorial. If you didn't see the link earlier on routing, you can click that now. If you tap the soft gain knob inside of the gain field, it's going to bring up the gain menu. In here, there's some various options, including digital gain, your analog gain again, gain compensation, phantom power, and the input port so we could change patching. I'll go over patching in a future tutorial. Click the link above if you're interested in input patch routing. Below our gain field is our panning field. Set stereo setter by default. Top right and down are dynamics 1 and 2. I'm going to open these up and show you what's inside because the options are different based on which dynamics are selected. Within Dynamics 1, there are 4 tools. We can use Dynamics 1 to affect a gate, a ducker, a compressor, or an expander. It is important to note that you do not get the same tools across Dynamics 1 and Dynamics 2. Within Dynamics 2, you get a compressor, but you also now have a compander with a hard knee, a compander with a soft knee, and a de-esser. Next, we have our EQ section, which can be opened up and manipulated via the touch to turn or the quick access knobs. To the left of that is the current high pass value and the on and off button for that. Next to that is our delay section. The delay section is input delay. This is not a bus delay, this is the input value delay, and that value delay scale can be changed between meters, feet, samples, milliseconds, and frames if you're trying to sync to a camera. Right here we now have more EQ control. Each field that's selected represent a band that's selected from low, low mid, to high. Whatever's selected can then be manipulated by the touch to turn knob, as you can see here highlighted in green. Next is our inserts. To select them, press the tab in the top right of this field. As you can see, where the insert lands in our signal chain, you have 3 options to do this. By default, your insert is before your EQ and your on and off button for that channel. I can show you how to change these things, especially with Dugan, and why it's important with using your Dugan in a future tutorial. If you're interested in inserts or on how to use the Dugan, please click the links above. Below our insert field, we have our direct out field, our recall safe field, which I'll go into in a later tutorial. Click the link above for recall safe. At the bottom, we can also select the fader associated with that channel and have fine control over it with the touch to turn knob. In the field to the right of that, we could select a DCA group to put that channel in, or a mute group to put that channel in. I'll go over DCAs and mute groups in a future video. Please click the link above. At the very bottom of the screen, we have our user-defined knobs. By default, the one on the left is our brightness for the lamp. Second to the left is brightness for the panel. Second to the right is brightness for the name. And all the way on the right is our input delay value. So we don't have to go back into our input delay field. We can adjust that right here. As I discussed earlier, the hotkeys to the left access our mixes and matrices, but you can also access them with that soft key right there I just pressed. As you see, the mix selected affects the blinking hotkey. Now, if I change it to the matrix, the blinking hotkey is associated with the matrix selected. Next, we have our channel job field. From top down, our first button is channel link, which I'll go over in a future video, DCA groups, mute groups, recall safe, mix minuses, channel sort. Next, we have our monitoring section. I'm going to go into this in further detail in future videos. If you want to, click the links above to go over the monitoring section, as well as the oscillator section, which has our pink noise and signal generators. Next, we're going to go into our rack. Starting from left to right, the first rack is our graphic EQ rack. Please note this is the only place to mount a Dugan auto mixer, is graphic EQ rack slot 1. The next rack is our effects rack, but please also note you can mount a graphic EQ here as well. Any of the first 2 rack pages and rack slots can occupy effects or graphic EQs, but only the first tab, slot 1, can occupy an auto mixer. The last tab is our premium rack. I'm going to go over this in a future tutorial, but here are kind of some things that are in there. Great stuff. Click the link above to check out the in-depth look at racks. Next, if you tap the meter section, it's going to bring up the meter field. From left to right, first tab is our input voltages, second tab is our output voltages, and the last tab is our RTA. Please click the link above to learn more about this RTA and some cool stuff you can do with it and the signal generator in this console. Next, we have our recorder tab. This is where we can easily get a stereo recording via thumb drive to MP3. Please note this is not a multi-track recording. We can only get a stereo MP3 here. For a future video on how to multi-track using Nuendo, please click the link above. Next is our setup menu. The top left button is the user setup. The bottom left tab is our preferences, followed by user-defined keys, user-defined knobs, custom fader, and the user level of the operator. Moving on, I'm going to select our word clock. I have the Dante 48K selected because I'm using Dante devices. We'll go over that in a future video. The next button is the Dante Setup. The date and time currently associated with the console. The bank selection chooses the preferences you have to brightness and contrast. Next to that is the console lock. If we had a password on this, you would need one to unlock it. Next, we have our output port section. Once again, we could select the delay scale of the output ports. The bottom tabs represent each bank of 8, starting from Dante, going all the way to your slots, and then your analog omnis. The delay button needs to be on in order for the delay to be active. You can also flip phase here. The phase button is right below the delay button. The last section of this overview is going to be the scene menu. Please note that within the scene menu, simply recalling initial data will not wipe out global settings. It'll simply wipe out that scene. Within your scene values, you can do multiple things like write macros, we can focus scenes, we can have fade times between them. I'm going to dive in really deep on this scene section and show you how I like to automate them in a future video. Click the link above if you want to see how to automate and write macros within your scenes. If you made it to the end of this video, then that means you are interested in these consoles and you want to learn about them. So go ahead, hit like, hit subscribe. That keeps these videos coming. Again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.